Welcome to Gaia's Love, a podcast of brief messages to help humanity bridge the gap to the new earth. My name is Vivienne Gerard. It is my delight to be a scribe for consciousness today, sharing the wisdom that flows through from Source. Here we go. Episode 171. It is Tuesday here in Cincinnati, another gorgeous day. It is seriously so pretty outside. Bright blue skies. Spring is arriving, so everything brown is turning green. It's 70 degrees, I think, today. No clouds. It is just gorgeous. So Star and I are going to go for a walk after I make the podcast and just tune in to the warmth and the sunshine and the feeling of all of this beautiful rebirth that is happening in the ground around us and the trees. So if you are local, go outside. Go outside today and soak it up. Okay, Tuesday. What feels present to me is this topic of flowing and then directing the flow. So I was pondering this today in my meditation. I'm like, what is the visual that helps us see how we in our minds are able to direct where our attention is going? I was listening to an awesome Abraham video, which I'll post on my Facebook page, my public page, and it was just so good. She just showed this beautiful soul who was so willing to take the microphone where he was blocked and where he could redirect his attention so that, he could really be in alignment with who he wants to be. And she does it so beautifully. Like you just laugh and you align and you get it, or at least I do. I listen and I laugh and I just delight in the way that she does her beautiful work. And so when I was meditating, I was thinking, how do I translate that? Because she has a language that she uses that sometimes I feel like the language it can feel confusing perhaps, or it's just a different language. And I was translating it into my language or my visuals because I really prefer images. I think images are so powerful. And so I had this idea of valves, and there are two examples that I'm going to use. So the first is our heart. If you think of the heart, it just naturally is doing its thing, right? It has the different valves and the different chambers, and the blood is pumping through and things are just happening, and we don't even realize that our heart is, it's not that we don't realize, we're not paying attention to the fact that our heart is doing its thing until something goes wrong. And then when something goes wrong, all of our attention is on our heart because it's not at its optimal health. And when someone has surgery to fix the valves of the heart, it's to allow the blockages that were there or the damage that has been done to be corrected so that the blood can flow back through again and it can work in its complex, intricate way. So that was one example of just this idea of valves. And then the other one, which I think is even easier to understand, is for those who garden. If you don't garden, it's okay. I think you'll be able to pick this one up with me. So when we have a hose at a faucet outside, I'm going to try to explain the visual. The way I grew up and the way I took care of watering my garden when I was married to my first husband and then when I was by myself in that house, there was one hose that went into one faucet outside and then one sprinkler at the end of it. And in my understanding of faucets and hoses and how you water your garden, that was it. There is one way to do it. And so I would move the sprinkler all around the place to make sure that the garden got whatever it needed because there was only one place the water was coming from. Well, when I moved into this new house with my now second husband, we I was introduced to a new way of watering, which is you can attach these spigots, or what look like valves, to a garden hose at the faucet. And so you can have 2, 3, 4, I don't know, 5, 10 different hoses. I don't think 10, probably 4 or 5 different hoses that connect to this spigot or unit. And each one has a little valve that you can open and close. And so you can leave the water running and have all of the valves closed, and then set timers. Who knew? You could set timers so that certain valves are opened at certain times, and the water runs for the set amount of time that you need it to run, so that one area of the garden gets a little bit of water, and then the water goes off, and then another area of the garden gets a little more water, and then the water goes off. It's magical. It's like this whole other way of being in managing a garden. And I'm sure it's been around for a long time, and many who may listen to this will think I sound crazy that I didn't know about this. It's a whole new world, but it's so exciting because you can be so efficient with your water use and with your time. I used to spend hours setting timers, running outside, moving the sprinkler, trying to not get wet, going back inside, doing something for the 15, 20 minutes. God forbid if I forgot and I drenched my area of the garden with like an hour's worth of water, and then I had to slosh through the mud to try to move the sprinkler. It was so much work to water the garden, and I know all that energy and that irritation went into the water and went into the garden. And so it felt like a lot of work. Now, with these sprinkler heads and timers and these valves and faucets with shutoffs that can move water so efficiently, it's so easy. It's so easy. And all I have to do is stand at the faucet and turn the water on and off, and have my husband show me how to set the timers, and it's all done. I never even have to go to where the sprinkler is and get wet, or step in the mud of a flower bed that's just been watered. It's so cool. It's so cool. And for those who don't water, I'm sure you can still understand this process of how it works. So when I was tuning into translating what I could feel in Abraham's description of focusing your thought, this visual of the faucet and the spigots and the valves, it was such a great visual. So play along with me. Until you know that there are options, we all have this one sort of track that we follow. So we have these thoughts we were raised with, and parents have told us the thoughts that we should be following, and so we repeat what we have learned, our teachers, our friends. We have this one way of expecting how life will be, and it's based on the community and the environment in which we're raised, the culture. So if we are in this one stream of knowledge, of way of life, we will just do what we know we see around us. We just go with this one stream of energy because that's all that we are aware of. No one's told us that there's this other whole way of being or this other way of thinking. And so we just flow with what is familiar. And this is so true of all of us when we're young, when we're growing up, perhaps even when we're first married or in our first jobs. We are just flowing with what we know and what we see around us. And so we regurgitate what we have been taught, what the examples around us tell us and show us to be true. So if the thinking is, this is the pathway, you go to school, then you go to college, you get a job, you get married, you have children, and you live a good life and you die. And so if that's what we are taught, that's what we're going to do, because that's what we know life should be. If, however, the faucet is always on, because our thoughts are always running, our awareness is always paying attention, if we are introduced to this second spigot or this second valve that says, you could actually travel the world. And I'm just using an example. You could travel the world instead of going straight from one school to another school or straight from college into a job. You could just go travel the world and see what that would even look like. And perhaps no one in your family has ever talked about that or considered that. No one's ever done it. So you're going to be this rebel that will try a different faucet or try a different spigot. So you open up this new way of flowing thoughts and energy, and you start traveling the world. Well, let's say as you're doing that, you go from culture to culture and country to country, and all of a sudden you go from one spigot or one valve to 10, 20. What if you see like 100 different ways of living your life? You can either expand with that and then start playing with this faucet opening, or the valve opening and closing the valve, and seeing what you like and resonate with, and what you understand and don't understand, and what you enjoy learning and what you don't like learning. You just start playing with the valves and opening and closing different experiences. But suddenly there's this other whole world being introduced to you. And then all these choices, these easy choices, start to be presented. So experientially, we can have this way of playing with valves. We're living different experiences. We're trying different ways of flowing life through us. The other is through our thoughts, and this is perhaps one of the most challenging processes that I believe we experience as human beings. When we get comfortable and familiar with a way of doing things, like how I did when I first watered my garden. I watered my garden that same way for probably 8-9 years, never knowing that there was another way to water a garden. That's just how I did it. I never went to Lowe's or Home Depot to see if there were different options. I just watered the one way I'd always learned to water. It's the same for our thoughts. So if our thoughts are constantly telling us one thing, and we believe that pattern, and we begin to do that pattern over and over and over and over again, our thoughts just become this one familiar flow. And so we're always going to have the same thought patterns, whatever that is. And you know what your thoughts are. Right? Maybe your thoughts are kind, but from the work I do, I don't see a lot of people with very kind thoughts about themselves. Most people have very harsh, judgmental thoughts about themselves. And the thoughts, the more we repeat them, the more comfortable and familiar that pattern is. And so it's just like putting on a pair of comfortable slippers. It's like, oh yeah, I did that stupid thing again, or I never do it right, or I'm always going to be late, or I'm never enough, I'm always going to be this or that. Like our minds just default to those comfortable slippers because that's what we know and that's what we've always done. And it's a very familiar flow. What if today, as you hear this, you can turn the valve to shut for just a few seconds even on that old flow, and you realize there's another spigot, another valve right next to this one that says, I don't know, I think I might be actually kind of awesome, right? Or I think I like myself, or I think I like this life, or you're right, the sun is shining today, it's not about to rain. Whatever it is, just open the valve on some different thought pattern, some different flow of energy through your mind. Maybe it's simply, I enjoy the quiet. I enjoy when my mind is quiet. I enjoy when I don't have to think and I'm just listening to Viv's voice tell me some other random thought that I've never considered before. It's really nice just to have a break. I'm so glad that valve is off for just a freaking moment. And there's another valve that I can open. Like, that feels really good. And notice what shifts in your body because you're introduced to something new. Right? When I found out that you could put timers on garden hoses, what? Like, yes, hallelujah. Life is going to improve. My time just became that much more efficient. So allow that valve to stay open while the old original one is shut just for a second longer. And then what if there's one other valve right next to that starts to open that says, I bet the gardens in Hawaii are gorgeous because they don't even need to worry about hoses because they just have that beautiful moisture in the air and all of that gorgeous rain and the ocean spray. I'm sure the gardens in Hawaii don't need watering like we do it over here. What if there are gardens that don't even need hoses and spigots and valves, timers? There's another whole way that life could be over here. And so there's a new thought flow that can start to happen, that can start to move through you. And then perhaps you just start to play with those valves. If it feels too good to consider what it might be like to have a garden in Hawaii, your mind may go, we're going to close that valve down and we're going to come back to this valve over here that says, I'm going to open it again. It says, I never would make enough money to have a home in Hawaii. I never could have enough money to travel to go see the flowers in Hawaii. We open up that old familiar thought pattern. It doesn't feel as good. It feels kind of limiting. It feels kind of heavy. So what if we close that one again for a moment and we go to the thought pattern that was right next to it that says, well, maybe, I don't know. You know, what would be fun is just to look at those pictures of what gardens in Hawaii might look like, just so I can even see. I don't even know what kind of flowers they have in Hawaii. And you open up this other valve. The main point I'm trying to share with you or illustrate, and it's what I became aware of this morning as I was listening to Abraham's awesome audios, is we're the ones controlling those faucets and those valves. We are the ones that decide in our minds what we are focusing on. And that knowing that it's our choice of what we're doing with all these valves and which ones we're opening and which ones we're closing, that power, that harnessed, focused attention is what creates our reality. It's what creates our world. When I know I have all these valves that I can open and set on timers and do all these cool things with, my garden, our garden, not mine, our garden can be abundant and lush and filled with all these beautiful flowers. And I'm just sitting inside watching it happen. I don't even have to be outside except once to turn the faucet on. And if I set the timers, I don't even have to do that. I just have to make sure the water's on. It's so simple. It's exactly the same for our minds. When we realize that the thoughts and the patterns that we run through our minds are completely under our control and no one is dominating them except for us, we open up to all these possibilities. The only thing that has shifted is our attention, our focus. How much time we're investing in one valve being open versus the other valve. So play with it. Turn the valve on that says you may have a garden in Hawaii and what that would look and feel like, and sit with that for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 10 minutes. Play with it, visualize it. See what shifts in your energy, in your body. See what manifests around you when your vibration is different. It's a game. It's just this game that we play with our mind, and being aware that we're the one playing the game and we're the one in control of our mind. It's amazing. It's amazing. So, if nothing else, perhaps if you have a garden and you've learned that there are these cool things called timers and valves and all these little attachments and gadgets, like watch some YouTube videos and see how you can be more efficient in watering your garden. That's pretty awesome. And then when you're sitting inside looking out, or when you're sitting on the deck watching the sprinkler go, post a little happy face on Facebook and celebrate the fact that you learned something really awesome today. Yeah, and let me just credit my husband Brad for introducing me to timers and valves and all of these cool mechanisms that make taking care of a garden that much simpler. Okay, Star and I are going for a walk. It's too pretty to be inside. Have a beautiful Tuesday, everybody. Thank you for tuning into this vibration of pure love. I invite you to join me in aligning with the optimal health of your mind, body, spirit in the virtual community of Viv's Energy Gym. You can learn more at mysouljourney.com. Let's take this message of Gaia's love out into all of our relationships and communities today. So much love from my heart to yours.